Hello my loves, I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being on my channel where we are talking about the multi-dimensional approach to rapidly and radically healing and transforming during and after narcissistic abuse. And this video is called Spiritual Awakening and Narcissistic Abuse and What You Need to Know, right? I've said many times on this channel that you do not need a narcissist to have a spiritual awakening on this planet, but sometimes they are the catalyst to that. But I think it gets very romanticized, right? Because for a lot of people, they will get so traumatized that the narcissist will actually succeed in their purpose, which is destruction and to stop your evolution. Look, guys, when you are in trauma, when you are in survival mode constantly, which is what the narcissist keeps you in lack consciousness, poverty consciousness, and disconnecting you from your own soul, your own self, and your own spirituality, which is their goal, right? If they succeed, which for many people they do, right? You will not have a spiritual awakening. In fact, you may even lower your consciousness. I know that through narcissistic abuse, after years of healing and development, a decade of success, I then went back into a narcissistically abusive cycle. And guess what? My consciousness actually lowered, my vibration lowered, right? What they do, especially if, what they do is try and interfere with your destiny. What they do is interfere with your spiritual gifts. What they do is try and interfere with your manifestation, because again, trauma blocks manifestation. It's this dominant vibration wins, and if we've got unhealed trauma, it's got a very strong energetic charge. So a lot of what I teach people is how to process trauma so that you can clean and reset your energy field and be a great manifester. So look, yes, they can be a catalyst. Why? Because they literally throw up what's unhealed in you. They trigger your wounds. They plant new fears. Yeah. They distort your consciousness because they're completely distorted. So for some of us, yes, they were the catalyst to our spiritual awakening, but you do not need them to evolve. And their job is actually to take you off your purpose, away from yourself. All narcissistic abuse is an erosion of self and a disconnection from you and your soul. They are soul detached, operating with an entity of consciousness that we're calling narcissism. When you're soul detached like a narcissist, you do not have emotional capacity. They do not feel how we feel. So when we project our empathy and our emotions on them, and we sit there projecting our humanity on them, that doesn't exist with them. Why can they drop you like a piece of trash after you've loved them, knowing that they're hurting you? Why can they antagonize and torment you? They're emotionally devoid. They do not feel guilt, remorse, shame, none of it. You're not dealing with someone like you. So one of my biggest messages is like, let's stop romanticizing this as some kind of catalyst to our awakening. Because yes, it will make you wake up, because you really have no choice sometimes but to wake up or be destroyed. Yeah. Some of these scenarios, which I have been in myself, are so severe. Right? You're either going to be completely demolished or you're going to wake up. But we do not need them for a spiritual awakening. And they are not like a beautiful part of our journey, right? If we would do the things I teach, right? The stuff I teach you in Sovereign, if everyone knew like how to do that stuff for themselves, right? Then they would not need a narcissist to trigger and torment everything that's unhealed in them in order for them to be such a sovereign source to self. Nor do most people on the planet need to be really that sovereign, because for a lot of people they're in codependent relationships but they're not being abused, right? Humans are born codependent. Think about it. Babies rely on their parents, so it's something that we can evolve gently and learn gracefully through. But if you've been through narcissistic abuse, then it's a really horrible way to have to learn, because it's learning through suffering. Yeah. And yeah, there could be karma and other things that we're clearing up spiritually, but let's not romanticize it. And again, I'm going to repeat for everyone here, right? Although a narcissist does mirror like your ideal partner and stuff to you in the love bombing stage, they are not a soulmate and they are not a twin flame. A twin flame would not abuse you. So, coming into our spirituality means that we are strong enough to stop making the narcissists our God, right? The thing that we fear, the thing that we're worshipping, right? Because like what the narcissist plays God in our life, right? They pretend that they have all power and control over us. They emotionally hijack us, right? We feel powerless. Now, I am not saying, because I have been there, believe me, many times, they have not actually in the physical world got power and control, right? When it relates to your finances, your housing, your security, your job, all these things, right? They're very real to go through. They're very real to go through. But still, there's a way to set yourself free always. Coming into ourselves, coming into our sovereignty, raising our vibration, clearing out the traumas, being a match to more opportunities, more wealth, more fulfillment in our life, right? So that we're no longer believing that we have to be abused to survive, or we have to be abused to be loved, or we have to take abuse in any way to get our survival needs met. And when I say survival means, I include love and connection, because for a human being, we actually, it's a need in us to want to be loved, to want connection. But hanging on to abusive things like fake love, right? Because in the end, after years of this, we don't believe we can have real love, or we don't really believe we can be independent again, because we've been so beaten down by life, and sometimes in what seems like impossible conditions. And I know that in my most impossible conditions, I always turn to the energy work and the work I teach in Sovereign, and I always got a way out, right? So narcissists do put you in traps. They are real. They are terrible. They are antagonizing and tormenting. But still, it's like if you choose your spiritual awakening, you will break free. Yeah, but it's not because the narcissist is, well, it can go one of two ways. You'll either awaken spiritually because you have no choice, or you could end up not, right? Because you'll be so destroyed. So that's what I want to say. And spiritual awakenings are basically coming into our own power, coming into our own spiritual connection, believing that we are protected, guided and supported, getting a higher awareness of the programs, the patternings, the kind of matrix around us, what our conditioning has been, seeing things for what they are. So spiritual awakening, or I was having a conversation yesterday with a client, and it's like people kind of glorify that as well and make it seem like it's just some kind of beautiful enlightenment. But a lot of the time, spiritual awakenings are very mucky, because one, what a lot of people here have talked about, right, is you see the world as it is, for real. And you see what happened to you for real. You become very conscious. So you see what evil is, and you have to recognize it, which is a very shocking thing to have to acknowledge when we've been not aware of how it really works, right? We also tend to go through a dark night of the soul, which is a time of real suffering and depression, when we actually start acknowledging how we've been treated, and we have to process the traumas that are in our way of creating our best life, because until they're processed, they live in us and we're still attracting more traumas, right? So spiritual awakenings often start with dark nights of the soul, and it may be many that you go through in this lifetime. I know I have, right? But still, on the other side is another calibration of power, another calibration of your soul united with yourself. So like self and soul is what like your ego and your spirituality kind of come together in a new way. And like you find out who you really are outside of all this, what I thought I had to do to survive, who I thought I was in order to be liked, what I was trying to fit into. You find out a different relationship with yourself, which is what we're seeking. It's just to come home within ourselves, right? So spiritual awakenings are kind of painful often, because we start realizing we don't fit into our old paradigm, and we haven't quite got into the new paradigm yet, which will be much more fulfilling for us, but often nothing that we thought it would look like, right? Which is why we get stuck in these things, clinging on to the past or our old programs, because it's what we thought we had to do in order to survive. And when we awaken spiritually, and again, the stuff in Sovereign will help you ascend, it helps everyone ascend, right? Then guess what? You begin to kind of like have a new lease on life. You have a new freedom in life. We start getting things we want differently, and we understand like what fulfillment means to us, and we understand how programmed and conditioned we were, and then we start growing into what it means to let that go and actually be self-sourcing, right? Self-sourcing in terms of our own source of love, validation, support, security, knowing what's right for us, clarity. Yeah, we start strengthening that within ourselves, so we can go on and create a life that may look different to what we thought it was, and may not be in the roles that we thought we'd play, right? Because a lot of the time we're hooked with a narcissist, and it's the roles that we kind of believed we had to play in that dynamic that gets in our way. And sometimes we do have to let go of all of that, right? And just be truer to self, truer to who we are. And that's how we live in love, because when we are rejecting ourselves and who we really are, then we're rejecting life, and we're rejecting our true, most fulfilling life. When we have to acknowledge, hey, look, this doesn't work for me. And if I have to abandon myself, I can't live that way successfully. I'm going to get ill. I'm going to get emotionally ill. I'm physically ill and mentally ill, right? So in that way, it kind of does force an awakening. But there is, the more we learn to come into ourselves and to be sovereign anyway, right? We don't need abuse to do it. But for some of us, like, it will be the catalyst for sure. But for others, it won't. It will completely, like, it could completely limit our expansion, which is why I really believe in, like, what I teach, which is like personal development, because that always brings you closer to your truth, who you are, what you want, what you need, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. So like, the awakening will be into who you are, what you came to do, what you came to experience, and more love for life, which means you can't attach to things that don't bring you joy, happiness, and love. Not that things won't happen in life, that you're not going to feel happy all the time, because life is life and some things are tough, and that is just things we can't control. But we definitely can live from a better, like, set point. We definitely can create something that feels much more aligned with us, because everything else will feel wrong until we claim ourselves and we claim our spot and we claim who we really are. So for more information on Sovereign, check out the links. Lots of love, guys. I'll speak to you soon.